Hey friends, welcome back to the CFE YouTube channel. It's another Too Fast to what is it? Not Too Fast Too Furious, Too Full Too Stack. I'm your host Nikki T, and today we're going to be looking at the Fresh framework. The Fresh framework is a meta framework that came out of Deno. The people that are behind Deno, the runtime. So we're gonna dig into that. And before we get started, just gonna make sure anything going on in the chat. No, okay, cool. All right, I'm gonna drop a few links. I've actually used Fresh before, not in a professional context, but I gave a talk about it last year at uh, actually, sorry, this year at Node Congress 2023. So I'm just gonna drop that link over here, and I'm just gonna put that on the good old jumbotron if folks are interested about it. There's definitely been some changes since I gave this talk. So well, we'll dig into everything, but one of the big things that changed was before there was no build step at all, and they did some perf and realized that building certain things actually made sense, you know? I like the idea of not having a build step, but they were, for example, compiling CSS on the fly when the page was served. And even though you could cache that, I guess they realized it was better for certain assets to not go ahead and do that. Okay, cool. We're gonna just switch over to this view here. And yeah, so I'm going to drop links to all these things that folks can check out. So you can check out the Fresh site here. I'll just drop that in the chat for anybody interested. And just put that on the Jumbotron for a sec. We can probably leave that up for a bit. Yeah, so we're just going to kind of dig into it today. And I'm going to kind of go through the docs a bit and stuff. But we can talk a bit about the framework itself. So it's it's a server-side rendered framework. There's no SPA mode basically, single page application mode. So it's kind of more like you could, well, you could. It's more like multi-page application, if anything. If you do have, oh yeah, I called it Jumbotron. Sorry, yeah, it's not really Jumbotron. It's the mini bottom left Tron. I guess we'll call it that. um, but yeah, it's a server-side rendered framework, and out of the box, if you don't provide any interactivity at all, it literally ships just raw, good old HTML. Now, you can definitely, there are use cases for that, like potentially doc sites, stuff with really no interactivity. But doc sites these days do have some interactivity too. Uh, but say you do want to add some interactivity to a page, which typically most people do want to do. They have a concept of islands architecture, which is not new. This is something that it was coined by, I think, Jason Miller and Katie Soiler Miller. I think that's how you say her name, but I'll just go grab the docs for that. So islands architecture. I think it shows up on like one of the Addy as many sites are. Yeah, there's a few here, but let's go to patterns.dev and I'll just drop that in. So for anybody curious about islands architecture, and I'll explain it briefly. Okay. It sounds fancy and stuff, but essentially what you're doing is, so think of, for example, your web page as the ocean, and the ocean is literally all the raw static HTML. Now, if you have an island, like say there's Hawaii in there or something, that's your little bit of interactivity. And that's where you would get some kind of client side functionality. Like the classic is a counter. Like if we scroll down in the fresh, is it here? Oh, when we do, yeah, here. So here's a island of interactivity here, and you can see there's a counter here. So that's really what that is. Um, that's pretty much what islands architecture is in a nutshell. But how you get that island there, there's different approaches, I guess. But we'll go through how Fresh does this, and we'll build out they have a demo site, and we're gonna just kind of look into all that. It has a lot of the other stuff here that you're probably familiar with if you've used another meta framework, whether that's like Next.js or Remix or Nuxt or whatever. There is okay, I think they have to update this because there is a build step because some things do get compiled, but um, there's essentially file-based routing. There's dynamic routes, a lot of stuff that you may be familiar with from other frameworks. A nice thing about the fact that this runs on Deno is you've got TypeScript out of the box. Now, if you're not familiar with what Deno is, I will go find that on my YouTube real quick. YouTube. What is Deno Nick? There we go. Let's go to here. I'm gonna drop this. This is it's about a 5-minute excerpt from a full stream I did with Lucas Casanado. Luca, sorry, not Lucas. Luca Casanado, who did create the Fresh framework. So if you're curious what Deno is, I'll drop that. And Deno's been around for a few years now. I can't remember when it started, 2018, I think. It's from the creator of Node.js, Ryan Dahl. Came out of a talk. Well, it was related to a talk he gave, 10 things I regret about Node.js. So check that out if you want to. There's the full video as well, which I'll drop in the chat. It was a great conversation with Luca, who talked all about the Fresh framework. As I mentioned, though, there are some things that have changed. Uh, there's not like massive changes, but there's definitely some new goodies in there. Um, so here's the full. I won't put this one on the jumbotron, but there's a link to a live stream I did with Luca. That was almost 2 years ago, I think. So you know, still relevant, but there's definitely some changes. Um, yeah, so I was talking about Islands architecture, and so they have this client hydration that happens, not client hydration like you would think of in terms of React, where you get hydration errors. That doesn't happen. Um, one thing that's good to mention too is uh, Fresh is using Deno, but for the client side and for the server side rendering, they're using Preact. If you've never used Preact, it's got pretty much a compatible API with React, except it's a smaller bundle. And they have diverged in some things, like Preact has signals now, which is something people might be familiar with from my old coworker Ryan Carniato has probably popularized this with signals in Solid.js. Signals have ended up in Angular as well now. There's a concept I think of signals in Vue as well, and Svelte I think it's called runes now. But basically this pattern has become popularized too. So just throwing that out there too. And so to kind of differentiate, Preact is using a virtual DOM like React. So what happens is when you have your page re-rendering, it has this kind of in-memory view of what the representation of that particular component is, or component tree. And then if it finds any differences, it goes, okay, the text in this list item changed, so that's what I actually have to patch up in the actual DOM. And that that's they have a I think a slightly different algorithm than how React does it. I'm not positive about that, but if you're using signals, which I haven't used a ton, um, your page is going to render, or the component will render. And if you're only using signals, if you're not using like Preact state, what happens is the signals know where where that signal is used. It gets subscribed to know where it needs to update things. And then what happens is, say, I don't know, say you have a name, like a first name and a last name, and then you have a form, and then like your first name's up there, but then there's like a one that puts the first and last name together. If you change the name in the field up top, it's going to notify, and the signal is going to know that, oh, I need to update where name is everywhere. But what it's doing is it's just updating those spots in the DOM. It's not running the virtual DOM at that point when you're using signals. So it's a different take. It's supposed to be more performant. I haven't done benchmarks on this, but I do like that idea. So that's something that came to Fresh, and basically it came to Fresh because, as I mentioned, Fresh is based off of Preact for basically the templating engine in terms of the server side rendering and client side interactivity. So basically anything new that comes out of Preact is available in Fresh. And just a fun fact, one of the core maintainers of Preact actually joined Deno, I think this past fall. Um, Marvin, I can't remember their last name. I don't want to say it's Marvin H, but Hagenmeister, I can't remember the last name. Apologies. But he's working full time on Fresh now. So, and he's done a lot of performance stuff. You may have seen on social media. He'll do these posts where he talks about improving like the performance of a particular thing, like, oh, this I looked at this npm package and I fixed, I instead of the string concatenation taking 10 seconds, it now takes 100 milliseconds or something. I'm just giving an example which may or may not be true, but anyways, so it's pretty exciting that he's on the team now. And as far as I know, like he's full-time on Fresh. uh I'm assuming maybe Luca and people in open source contribute to it as well still, but that's just kind of like a rundown of what Fresh is. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install it. And so I'm just going to copy the command here. So this is just off the fresh.deno.dev site. Going to paste this in, and essentially, let me bump that up one more. This is going to install Fresh and or a new Fresh site. So it's just downloading some binaries. It's going to say, what do you want to name the project? So let's just call it CFE Dev Fresh. Or you know what? Let's just call it Fresh Fun. All right. Now it's going to give you a few prompts here. Fresh has built-in support for styling using Tailwind CSS. You don't have to. I'll just say yes because I've been using it at work, and I use VS Code. Yes, and that's pretty much it. And the project's initialized. So I'm gonna just open up the project. So let's go to Fresh Fun. My little tip always, if you're using VS Code, if you run code from the command line to launch VS Code, if you add a -r, it reuses the window. So it's going to reopen here, and we're gonna just take a peek here at what's going on here. This is just Copilot. Yes, okay. So it's gonna ask if you want to install the Deno extension if you're using VS Code. I'm gonna say yes. I used to have it on. I started a new job a few months ago, so that's why it's not on here, I guess. And this will just give you IntelliSense and some other goodies, their language server, etc. So let's just go ahead and close that. And just want to come and look at the folder structure real quick, and we can actually just start the project. So, first things to note, and I know Deno has mentioned they support package.json now and stuff, but typically if you're running in a Deno first project, you're going to get this deno.json file. And think of this like, let me close a few things. Think of this like a package JSON, and instead of npm scripts, you have tasks. And so there's some tasks by default in here. So check, which runs like linting and also runs like checks for types. There's a few other things here, but all we're really concerned about right now is running start. So if you want to run Deno tasks, there's a Deno task. I'm using Fig here, so it's just giving me some help. And then you choose the task you want to run. So I'm going to say Deno task start. And this is going to start up Deno, Fresh. So we got a new site at localhost 8000. So let's open up that. Okay. So we've got a site here, and not much going on here, but there's a classic counter. So if I click on here and here, we've got a counter. And so let's kind of dissect this. This is a server-side rendered page. And then we have this section here. which is an island. And I'll kind of explain how does the island interactivity get bootstrapped. So to do that, I'm gonna go full screen for my browser for a second. I'm gonna now. I know people are familiar with the dev tools, which I'll have to zoom in, but you know what? I'll just put it in the middle. There are the dev tools, and you can see like, your DOM here and the markup, but that's not what we want to look at. We want to actually look at the page source because we want to see what did the server render. So, okay, it's all one line right now, but I'm gonna just thank God Chromium added line wrap. Okay, so now we're gonna get this whole bundle here. Now, you're gonna see here, I'm gonna bring it into VS Code and just paste it as HTML, just so we can see this a little better. So let's do this and let's create a new file, paste it in, and I'm gonna change the type to HTML. Whoops, here, let's go to HTML. I'm just gonna format this. Okay. Now let's just get some more real estate back here. And I'm going to kind of dive through what we have going on here. So just to be clear, this was a server-side rendered page. We do have islands of interactivity. So, okay, we've got a style sheet. That's fine. Um, we've got some stuff in here, like this is signals, which is for coming from Preact, I imagine. Deserializer, not positive. Then we got like our main chunk here. And then there's this island counter. And the island counter, if we look at uh, here, we have a counter. So that's the counter component. And they appear to just, for islands, they just prefix them with island dash, and then they put the name of the counter in lowercase. And then we've got this part here, which is another thing, which is the dev client, which I think is for the like the hop module reloading. Okay, and we got some markup here, which is fine. And this is where I want to kind of dig into it. So you're gonna see here in the markup, there's this fresh counter underscore default colon 0, and this is a HTML comment. And then you've got some markup, and then you've got a closing HTML comment. So this is the boundary of what the island is. So all this markup in here, that's the actual island in the counter component. And you can see that, like if we look at button and it says it's disabled and it's got a +1 there. And if we go to the counter, we can see that we've got this +1 and -1. So that's where this is coming from. And if we come down here, you're gonna see something that probably looks kind of familiar like Next.js, where they would have some state in there. So this is a script with this ID underscore underscore FRSH underscore state all in uppercase. And then we have a few things in here. I forget what the V represents, but essentially this is an array of the state of your components. So you can see here, uh, this whole thing right here. Sorry, let me this array and this array. This is an array of states, and what you're going to see is, so this is the first item in the array. There's only one, I know, but this actually maps to the island that got hydrated. So it's the first counter, and the 0 here actually represents the index in the state here. And then essentially that is how the state gets bootstrapped. There's like a bootstrapping function that'll run, and that will actually read this state, and that's how it'll get hydrated. And yeah, that's kind of it. And actually, you can see it here. They have this revive function. This is what actually does the hydration. And we can actually go to the revive in here. Um, we can actually go into the actual code, and I can maybe take a peek at that. We're kind of going in the weeds here, but I think it's good to explain this. Revive. Nope, I don't want olive oil. That's not what I meant to do. Let's do um, code search, revive. This is a GitHub code search. If you've never used it, super handy. It's obviously finding a lot of things here right now. I want to actually filter down on a repo. So let's come in here and I'm going to say, I think it's here, repo. And then we'll say Deno, land Deno. No, we want there. Fresh. Is that it? No. What is the repo? Fresh. Let's just look in Deno land. Revive. Is that not it? I'll find it, but we can maybe look for it here. Hold on a sec. I've got a link to the actual GitHub source. 2 seconds. We'll build out something shortly. I just wanted to just kind of explain the internals of how this works. For context, I used to work on the frameworks team at Netlify, so that's why I'm kind of digging into this a bit. Okay, so source, uh, and then let's see here, runtime, head, partial build. I think it's in deserializer. Is that it? Revive, reviver. Okay, that's close. Anyways, you know what? We can skip it, but essentially this revive function is going to run. It takes that state that I showed you in the HTML, and then that's essentially how it hydrates. Okay, cool. Let's move on and let's actually build something. And what I'll do is I'm going to show you by not a PR I'm working on or reviewing what happened to my other screen. Okay, I'm on the wrong screen. Let's go back here. Okay, and let's get back to where we were. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather, so I might have a bit of brain fog. That's where we want it to be. Okay, so let's come back here. Let's just close this. And just to show you in terms of the counter, so let's look for this counter, and it's in here. Okay, so cool. We got the counter there, and I'm gonna do this, and let's create another counter. And they both start off with an initial count, but they will diverge. So I'm going to save this and let's come back to the fresh is fun. Now we're going to have two counters. Oh, I got to give two different counts. Sorry. Uh, use signal 3, use signal 2. Let's count 2. Terrible name, I know. Okay, let's come here. Okay, so they're working independently now. Okay, cool. That's good. Now let's take a peek here though. Let's go ahead and view the source again. So I'm going to refresh this page. And now we're going to come down here and I'm going to just bring back the HTML again for 1 second here. Create a new page again. Let's put it back to HTML. Let's format. Okay. Now, you see now in the state I was showing you before, there's two counts. And you can see this is the count state for the first counter, and this is the count state for the second counter. And if you look up in the markup now, we still have what we had before, which is the fresh counter default 0. But we also have another one now. We have a fresh counter, which is over here, sorry, which is 1. And that represents the second item in the array because that's the index. So that's just a little thing to show that that's how the hydration works and that's how the state gets loaded up. All right, cool. So let's look at some other things here. Okay, let's move this over here. Let's close that up. I feel pretty fine, but my nose has been blocked or like sinuses here a bit. So if I sound a little nasally, that's why. Okay, so now that I've kind of explained the hydration and how the islands work, I just kind of want to break down the format of the folder structure here. So we have components here. So like we can have a button, and that button's actually used in the island, like over here. So we can see the buttons here, and that's imported from the components. Now, this is a convention, but anything that's in the islands folder um, will be considered interactive. If I put this same component into the components folder, none of the JavaScript would run. Just checking the chat real quick. So Brian's saying, I never really thought about how these apps handled state. I'm not sure what I was expecting, but that wasn't it. Yeah, there's different ways to handle it. Y I Quick has resumability, which I haven't dug into too much. I understand the concept, but they have triggers that just say, "Go get the state," when they need to, and there's stuff stored in HTML attributes, I believe, as well. But yeah, it's an interesting way to do it. Essentially, what it does is it ends up walking the whole DOM, and it looks for these things. "Hey, how's it going, Cassidy?" No, you're not too late. I was just given, an explainer of, like, a bunch of the stuff that comes in fresh, and I was just kinda going over how the islands architecture works. And it's kinda interesting. You can catch it, the start maybe later, but essentially they load up, like, interactive components in the server-side rendered markup, by by delineating them with HTML comments, and then there's a piece of state that is loaded as a script, and it's an array of all the components and their proper state. And then there's this kind of reviver function, and it walks the whole DOM, and it finds these HTML comments and goes, "Oh, okay, what's the HTML comment say? Okay, this is a counter component. It's the first one." And then it goes and gets that state from the server side rendered markup. And that's how it hydrates it. That's the TLDR. Um, cool. So yeah, so like I was saying, uh, you definitely have components. It's Preact, but just like React, it's all component based. But the components folder is only for server side rendered. I shouldn't say server side rendered components. They're only for components that will never get interactivity, which is most likely server side. Um, and if you have anything in the islands folder, this is where you get the interactivity. And to prove this point, I'm gonna move this into the components folder really quick. And let's go to the index. Did it update it? Yes, it did. Thank you, TypeScript. Okay. Failed to save. Why? Okay. Here, don't save. Sure. Okay, now if this loaded properly, okay, it's reloaded. Okay, now as you saw before, like these counters were working. Now that they're in the components folder, nothing is working, and that's because it's in the components folder. And if we look at the page source again, uh, there's one thing of JavaScript here. This is for like just the hot module we're loading, but you can see literally all the JavaScript was stripped. This is literally there's a styles, there's a SVG logo, and then there's just the dev script for hot module reloading. So this is important to note because if you're ever wondering like why is my page not refreshing or whatever, or why is the counter not working, it's because you built it in the wrong folder. So I'm gonna put this back to islands. Save that, and then if we come back here, I might have to refresh. Oh, did I killed my dev server by doing that, I think. Let's start that again. Okay, let's close that. Let's refresh. I might have broken something. Uh, oh, yeah, the button is in components. Alright. Uh, let's just import it with TypeScript. My brain's cool. Cannot find button. Why not? You know what? Let's just undo, undo, undo. Yes, undo, move, save. Let's undo, undo, undo. Yes, and save. Okay, let's get back. I killed the watcher somehow by doing that. Okay, what is going on? Yeah, okay, the counter. Yes, I know that's not there. That should be in components. I knew how to type. Okay, there we go. So now I'm gonna reload this. And then because I've put it back in the counter back in the islands, the interactivity is working again. Hey, how's it going, Stefan? Hey, Checkley representing. So again, just to reiterate, if you're building out components and you want interactive components, they have to be in this island folder. Uh, cool. There's other things that you get. So like I was mentioning, the file-based routing. Yeah, Rocket Cat. All good, all good. Good to see you, man. I got to meet up with Stefan in Toronto this past summer, so it's cool to meet up with him. Okay, so there is some interesting things you can do though. So, and this isn't specific to Fresh, but say you want to render something on the server side that has lots of data, like maybe you're hitting an endpoint and you're loading that data, but you're doing that on the server side. You can have that happen in the server side component, but it can be a dynamic component like an island. So you could kind of have like the child wrapping it. And like an example of this, I know Ryan Carniato's given demos of this before, but basically like showing and hiding comments potentially that becomes interactive and you can do stuff with it, but the initial comment content comes from server side rendering, which is kind of nice. Because in the past, I think a lot of people would actually load the children of the component as something dynamic, like say, go get me the comment. Okay, so there's some other things we have here. So if you're familiar with like Next.js, and to be clear, the Fresh framework is definitely taking inspiration from existing frameworks. So like Remix and Next and probably Nuxt, and I can't think of others at the moment. My blocked nose is preventing my brain from functioning. But we have also, API routes. So there's this joke route, and my favorite computer-based band is the Black Eyed Peas. Ha ha ha. That's I think that would Shruti Kapoor would like that one. This is just a random array and it's just loading it, but this is to show that you can also have an API endpoint. And then we have just the regular file-based routing. So, um, you can have special characters in here. So like in here, for example, if I zoom in a bit, you can see it's got the name.tsx. So if I go to, for example, let's say Cassidy. Did I go? Oh, whoops, sorry, I got to go to greet. I always wish you could zoom in on the browser bar itself because when you're streaming, that I zoom everything else, but so so here you have it's a dynamic route, so it's taking the name and basically using that. And if we look at what this particular thing is doing, it's just saying, hello props dot params dot name. So it's just grabbing part of the path here and using that. Um, so this is these things aren't necessarily brand new in terms of concepts, but again, to reiterate, this is running off of Deno, and so it's running on the edge. And some niceties about it. I dropped a link about what is Deno before, um, but this is something that I personally didn't understand when I heard about Deno. So Deno, you typically are recommended to write everything in TypeScript. You can obviously write it in JavaScript if you want. Um, but the thing that threw me off, and not just for Fresh, but just for Deno in general, is you write TypeScript, there's no build step, and then all of a sudden, like the page renders. In terms of server side stuff, I could understand that potentially. I was like, okay, well, it's server side, so they can just use TypeScript in the server side. It is a language, but in the browser, with client-side interactivity, even though people build things with TypeScript, there's always a build step and it gets transpiled or compiled and into JavaScript, and that's what runs in the browser. And this is kind of where my brain froze because I didn't understand. It's like I'm writing stuff in Fresh for the front end, there's no build step for these components, and it really got me confused. And I'm probably not gonna explain this perfectly, but the that what is Dino video clip from a stream I did with Luca, it explains it really well. I'm just gonna drop that again because I know some new people joined. Okay, where is it? Oh, I did drop it. Let me go back in the chat and find it. I forgot I have access to the Jumbotron, right? So let's put it back up here. Where is it? That's island. Okay, here. So, okay, no, that's fresh. Oh no, this is the one I meant to show. So this is about a 5-minute clip from that live stream I did with Luca Casanato, who created Fresh. This kind of really explains Deno well, and I'll kind of try to summarize it. So what happens is like because I asked him, I said like if I'm if I have client side code, like how is that becoming JavaScript or how is it running in the browser? And essentially what he said was there's a few things. So it compiles it on the fly. And I was like, well, okay, if that's the case, but doesn't that slow things down? And he said it's pretty negligible. And he explained why. He said, so you have, uh, so Deno is running, it's using V8 under the hood, which is uh, the same, not runtime, it's the same engine as running in Chromium-based browsers. It's what Node.js uses. Deno is also using this. So there's a few things to do this all on the fly. There's like I think a snapshot of V8 that's in a good state to be able to run fast. And in terms of TypeScript, they warm up the TypeScript compiler by running it through a bunch of code paths to just put it in an optimal state to actually compile code on the fly. And then when you serve your page, um, on the server side, it's transpiling your components that are TSX files and JSX as well. Another nicety about having Preact and TypeScript is you get all that JSX support out of the box too, but it transpiles it all there at that point and then serves it, and that's essentially how it works. And it still blows my mind a bit because like I feel like there's got to be a tipping point where like, it might be slower, but from what they said, it doesn't appear to be. So that's kinda how I understood it, but I definitely encourage you to check out that "What is Deno" video, because Luca explains it really well. So that's essentially that was, like, a missing piece for me, so that definitely cleared up stuff for me because I was like, I mean, sad enough to say, but back in the Internet Explorer days, I actually wrote some VB script in like Internet Explorer 5 at some point. So I don't think TypeScript is coming to the browser, but I'm glad VB script isn't in the browser. Anyways, so yeah, so we have all these all the niceties that you know from other frameworks. So file-based routing, like I said, API routes, um, interactivity, and let's see what else. You have other stuff like you can have your custom 404. That's nothing really exciting, but you also have like a main page here. Think of this as kind of like Next.js has like an uh, app file, which is kind of like the entry point, and this is where you have like your head and all that stuff, and that's kind of it there. The other things I'll mention, like I was saying, I installed it with Tailwind, and I'm gonna zoom this down one. Okay, yeah, it's still readable. Um, essentially, uh, initially when Tailwind support was introduced, they used something called Twindy, which is here, Twindy Tailwind. I think that's what it's called. Twint, sorry, Twint. Um, so this was actually Tailwind that would compile on the fly, and that's what they were using initially. It seems like an interesting project, but like I was mentioning, they realized over time that you know maybe it makes more sense to just build this at when you serve it. Sorry, at build time. And I'm actually curious. Okay, yeah. So okay, so there's this base Tailwind, and they must have Tailwind's abstracted away here. I think there's a config. If we look here, so this is, like I was mentioning before, now that I work at open source, it's the first time I work with Tailwind professionally, and I didn't really use Tailwind before that, to be honest. Not because it's bad. I think it's pretty good. I think at least what I think works best is defining a good set of base styles and then leverage the utility classes where it makes sense. Definitely for structure, you can still use it for like some colors and like some like some font sizing and stuff. But that's how I've found it to work well. I'd be curious about other people's uses, but I won't go into Tailwind too much. But essentially, it's saying anything in these folders that are TypeScript or like basically TS or TSX files. That's what we want Tailwind to handle. And then we've got this styles.css. Um, yeah. Brian's saying I like Tailwind, but it's not great for example apps, which is what I often work on because it's so verbose. Yeah, I can feel that. A lot of times it's easy to I mean, if you're comfortable with CSS, you can get pretty far. It's not that hard to say like display flex, and then like, change the direction, add a gap, all that kind of stuff. The lobotomized owl there, star plus star, etc. But I think Tailwind it just makes people feel a lot more comfortable in CSS for folks who aren't super comfortable. But yeah, I do feel you. And side note, but like Cat, I don't know if Cassidy's still here, but her Jumbly app, eh, she built it for the Jason Langsdorff's For Devs show, and she just went and like pure HTML and CSS, and I think just vanilla JavaScript to build that. So that was just fun to see. So yeah, essentially for if we want to build any styles out, essentially we've got Tailwind based stuff here, and you can add if you need to. So we don't need to do that. Cool. Let's see here. I'm gonna go in the docs a bit here, just because there's some newer stuff, and I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. So let's go to the docs here. All right. Intro. Yeah, okay. Let's go to table of contexts. Okay, so let's create a route. Oh yeah, I may want to hide the jumbo trot. Yes, thank you. It's a comment from way up high, so thank you though. That's when I stream on my own stream, I have like a custom setup with OBS, so I'm not used to the StreamYard where you can put something up but it doesn't go down. I wonder if there's like a setting to say, like after a minute or two, just not hide it or hide it. Sorry. So yeah, we can look at creating some routes here. But like I was saying, it's basically file based. So if we come here and let's add a new route. Let's say, I don't know, where did my route go? All right, okay. Gonna go with my YOLO.tsx. All right, and let's just do some copy pasta. Oh yeah, this is something I should mention too. Um, Okay, from fresh. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at this real quick. There's something else. Do they have it in here? Import maps. Yeah. So if you're if you're using Deno without like I know they have support for npm packages and all that stuff now. But if you're just using like a brand new Deno project and you want to do things the Deno way, they use import maps. And essentially think of these as redirects to the actual files. So for example, here, if you use something like Webpack potentially, you could think of these like as aliases as well, but they really are redirects. And so for example, here, if we see $fresh slash, that's actually pointing to this URL, which is actually the code for the fresh server for Preact, and you can conversion it and stuff. And essentially, that's just wanted to mention that as well. And you can see here, okay, so they're using import maps, but because they support npm now, you can use like npm colon, for example. Um, yeah, so fresh is Preact only. Oh, hey, Kevin. I don't know Kevin, but I know Kevin does DevRel for Deno. So thank you for dropping by. Hopefully, I'm not butchering anything here that I'm talking about. No pressure, Nick. But yeah, so I was saying for the imports, yeah, you could have stuff in package JSON and all that, but if you're gonna go like, no pun intended, with like a fresh Deno project, you're gonna lean on just import maps. And like I was saying, these here are considered like URL redirects to the actual things. Although when I first saw them, I kind of equated them to like aliases, like I said, in like Webpack or other bundling. So if we come here now, so you can see here, so I'm importing page props, which is a type from fresh slash server.ts. And again, the dollar $fresh is what maps to here. And, there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, yeah. This is this is something that threw me off at first. You see here, there's, like, Tailwind CSS, and then there's Tailwind CSS slash, and I'm not positive, maybe Kevin can answer this, but I think the reason is this is if you want stuff directly, like, at the root level of what's in there, and then I think the slash means it could be stuff within it. I'm not positive about that, but, anyways, but yeah, import maps. You're typically not going to need to come in here unless you actually want to add some packages. And like I was mentioning too, it's Preact under the hood. So this is basically TypeScript configuration here in the Deno.json. And yeah, feel free to dig in here more. And then there's the tasks, like I was mentioning, and we're running the Deno task start. So let's go ahead and create a new route here. And let's see here. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, Kevin was saying, yeah, they're just really aliases for URIs. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. So let me just do a bit of copy pasta here because I'm forgetting some of the syntax, not React syntax, but like if we just go to the route here. Yeah. Okay. So they're doing default exports for pages. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's just do here, YOLO. And, let's just start off. Let's return null just to begin with. And is my dev server running? Yes, it is. Okay, let's put this back over here, get some real estate back. All right, and let's go to localhost 6,000 again, 8,000, sorry. Okay, so if we go to slash YOLO, nothing's gonna render, but then I can say like, hello. There we go. Then we get hello. And just again, showing the example of the hot module reloading in place here. Um, and I'll just reiterate again, because it does server-side rendering using Preact and it uses Preact in the front end as well, anything new that comes into Preact becomes available to Fresh, which is pretty nice. Stefan's asking, I'll just put this on the jumbotron that isn't the jumbotron. Are the maps trickling into the browser as import maps, or are they Deno config? Um, from what I saw, it is just creating it's doing code splitting, and it's just showing up as regular script paths, I believe. We can go back to an example here. So if I view the page source, and let me just copy this and bring it back in here again. Uh, New, paste, and let's just get some formatting in here again. And format. Okay. All right. So you can see here it's generating it's done some code splitting. Like this, for example, is the like I mentioned this before, this is the signals. And okay, yeah, so just used, on the server for Deno. Yeah, for the client side, it makes sense, and this is also probably due to the fact that, Preact's running on the front end, so it's gonna split up stuff, the way Preact does stuff. Um, yeah, okay, cool, cool, cool. But yeah, but to your point though, Stefan, I have used import maps in the browser. It still seems kinda wild to me, but it's pretty interesting. Okay, so let's close that, and let's go back to our endpoint. Alright, and we can just start building out stuff here. So, we can do, let's just give it a little bit better stuff. And I don't know, let's put in, the other thing, it's Preact, so you can use class. You don't have to use class name if you're coming from React. And I could do like, I don't know, let's just do grid, place, content, center, and save that, and then it gets centered. Also, if you're wondering where that IntelliSense is coming, it's because I have the Tailwind extension installed for VS Code. That's not coming from Deno. Okay, so this is pretty boring, I'll admit. But let's look at some more interesting things here. So we've got the routes here, but you can also have dynamic routes, and we saw that with the greeting example. But there's also other stuff like you can do custom handlers. We can add headers and stuff. So let's look at this, for example. I'm going to copy this and let's add this here. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Okay, and let's come back here. Going to refresh the page. It looks exactly the same, but let's go to the dev tools and let me zoom these in a bit. Okay, that's like super huge, but all good. And let's go into the network tab. Let's reload this again. What do I have it set to? I think let's do all. Let's reload it. Oh, I might have to zoom down. I can't even see the things. Let's pull this up here. Okay, so let's look at the YOLO here, and that's the markup that got rendered. Again, just to be clear, uh, Fresh literally ships only markup if you don't have any islands. Uh, I'm not being hypocritical here. This script tag here is just for the dev environment. This is what gives you the hot reloading or hot module reloading. But literally, there's literally no JavaScript if there's no interactivity, and that's compared to some other frameworks, that's a differentiator to me. Now, you're gonna see here, all of a sudden, I've got this custom header and it says hello, and that's what I added here. So you can manipulate and based on different things like we could do a forum post and we could do something else, but you have access to manipulate things here. Um, a client-side router, that's a good question because I used Preact when I worked at Dev2. And I don't think Preact doesn't have a router, or does it? Oh, okay. Uh, I'm curious, Kevin, is the router you're talking about, is that opt-in in Fresh? Because that's not something, I mean, that's not part of Preact as far as I know. Um, yeah, okay. I'll let Kevin chime in, but it's okay. So it seems opt-in, but and we can actually look that up because I'm curious now. So Fresh Deno opt-in router. Okay, here we go. This is route. This is routing, not the router, but yeah, yeah, fetching docs. Yeah, sorry, I'm putting Kevin on the spot. Okay, partials. Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Partials is new. That's something that is that part of I think that's part of Preact, but available in Deno. Sorry, in Fresh. Let's see here. Yeah, so partials allow the page to be updated with new content, and yeah. Uh, okay, yeah. Without causing the browser to reload the page, and this probably seems similar to like React server components, I believe, because you can. But there's some differences though, because like uh yeah, it lets you swap out the HTML based on routes. Okay, yeah, cool. Yeah, that's there are some differences too for Fresh. So like React server components, you can stream them. As far as I know, I don't think Fresh does. And the other thing too is like Fresh it uses Preact render to string. So and I remember when I had Luca on my stream, he was just saying like just going to string, like, compared to streaming, like, at the time, at least, he said it didn't really seem like too much of a difference, to be honest. That's kinda what I remember him saying. Okay, yeah. So, but let's take a peek at partials because this is one of the newer things from the last time when I had looked at Fresh. So partials are enabled by adding f-client-nav attribute to an HTML element and wrapping one or more areas in the page with a partial. Okay, so okay, so we can add it to the app. So let's just go ahead and do that. And let's go up here. Okay, cool. Yeah, no worries. Thanks for stopping by, Stefan. Okay, so I've enabled it at the basically at the app level. And okay, so okay, nice. Okay. And then here, okay, get rid of those pluses. Hey, how's it going, Aaron? Cool. Let's format that. There's Deno format. I don't know why it's not doing it. Maybe I don't have the extension set up properly. Yeah, Deno. There we go. Okay, whatever. Let's just go prettier. Uh, there is a formatter with Deno. I don't know why it's not working. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. Oh, it's because I'm missing something. I didn't close it. Oh, yeah, it's me. There we go. Perfect. Don't need this plus here. Okay, so basically what Kevin was saying about the partials is you can kind of get this client-side routing happening, and I've imported partial here, and this is in the underscore app.tsx file. So this is where literally all the components go through. And you can see here, we've added this f dash client dash nav. So that's client navigation. I guess F is for fresh. And then you got the partial. So basically anything in here, the HTML is going to get swapped out. So let's take a peek at that. And to do that, let's create a few links here. So let me come over to the app. Let's close DevTools. Okay. And let me just make a quick nav here. I'll just put nav. This could be a component. I'm just being lazy. Okay, and then let's just do UL. Okay, we got Tailwind or Copilot helping me here. Sure, sounds good. Okay, let's do home, YOLO. Okay, and let's do, yeah, that's good enough. Let's save that. And okay, this is not accessible because it's just all black, but don't worry about that. That's not what we want to see. I'm gonna open up the dev tools now and we're gonna look at what happens here, and I'll make it more the center. Uh, yeah, there. Okay, so I'm on the hello page here, and so this part here with the hello, let me zoom that in. Okay, now if I switch to home, we should see in the dev tools there, nothing change except where I currently have it highlighted in light blue, that should flash. There we go. The I think that kicked in. Yeah. Okay, let's go back again. Let's try. Uh, there. Yeah, you see it's just switching there and the rest of it's staying. So there's basically the client side routing in action by adding partials. So that's super cool. So it's not it, I think it's kind of like it's similar to how you can pull down React server components, but it's not exactly the same thing. But I think it's pretty neat. And again, what Kevin was saying is this something that is opt-in, so I added it. Um, I am curious though, Kevin, like say I disabled JavaScript. Let's see here. Whoops, not print. That's classic. You're not in the dev tools and you press P. Let's do control. What is it? Disable JavaScript. Oops. Okay. I'm going to refresh the page. I'm going to assume it's just going to server side render. So even though we've got F client nav true here, I'm on the main page. If I go to YOLO, yeah, it does a full page refresh. So you can have the niceties if you do want to have this. Uh, it sounds like, I don't know. I think opting into it would be a smart thing to do. And if for some reason, um, JavaScript is disabled or it's not working or something breaks, you still get the server side action happening. Why is my disabled JavaScript not there? Hold on a sec. JavaScript. No, not that. Command Shift B. JavaScript. There we go. Enabled. And if I refresh this, we're on the YOLO page. So we see here, hello, and then we're going to click here, and then boom, it just injects the markup in that partials area, which again just maps to what we have over in here. This partial component doesn't actually render in the DOM. Um, I don't know, not Ghost component, but it's compiled away, and then obviously some JavaScript script runs to say like just update this. Yeah, it did fall back to SSR. Yeah, correct, Kevin. That's what I just tried. Sorry, I'm seeing the chat later. um, I think that's pretty neat. Let's take a peek at what else we got here in Fresh that's new. Uh, I do think that the partials is pretty compelling. We did talk about that. Adding interactivity, yes. That's we basically I didn't create a new component, but basically we had the counter component, and I know some people showed up a little later. So if we go to the counter, um, another thing I mentioned at the beginning is it uses signals, and this is something that came to Preact, I think, sometime this summer or maybe early fall. I can't remember. So you can still use component state, but if you don't want to, you can actually use signals. And so this is where the two counters are. So I've created two signals, and then each counter gets their own signal. And then again, like I was saying, the signals are laser focused. They know all the places that have it's being used. So it's kind of like I think it's like pub sub with signals. So basically, wherever you're using this signal, it knows that it has to update that, and it actually doesn't. If you're not using any component state like a use state or like use reducer, it's not going to use the virtual DOM. It's just going to render once, kind of like what Solid JS does, and then the signals will kick in. So um, I think I would be inclined to go with signals if I was building out something new with Fresh. I think I think what happens is because like Preact has a compatibility layer, so you can definitely bring in like React components and stuff. And so it would depend. Like probably a lot of components are still using component state. So you could have a mix of them, I guess. But anyways, there was that. We talked about singles. You can deploy to production, so we can do that. It should be just Deno deploy, I think. Let's just go push this app up. Okay, I think it's Deno deploy. Oops, would help if I learned how to type. No, that's not it. What is it? Could do Deno task. Oh yeah, what I can do is let's go to Deno deploy. Actually, I do have some apps up here because I did give a talk on this before. Yes. Okay. Okay, yeah. So here's my fresh talk demo from Node Congress. So this is deployed app on Deno deploy. These are just several components. So what we can do here is we can say new project. Let me zoom this up. And uh, let's see here. Create a blank project. Fork. I've only ever pushed it up from GitHub, so I think I'll just do that. GA. Has this been initialized? Hold on a sec. Git init. Or actually, is there a Git folder? Git add. Okay, yeah, it's not a Git repository. So Git init. And then let's just do a Git chore initial classic initial commit. Whoops, got to add all those files. Okay. Let's do GitHub CLI, GitHub repo create, and let's push an existing local repository, the current one, fresh fun. Let's do it to my own account. We'll make it public. Add a remote, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I've pushed it to GitHub now, and let's come in here, and I'm gonna pick Nikki T online, and let's just look for fresh dash fun. Did it not go up yet? Oh wait, did I do a git push? Yeah, no, the partials are pretty cool, Aaron. Did that go up? Push commits to. Okay, yeah, it's there. Let me refresh. Maybe it's okay. Fresh. Why do I not see my add a repository? Oh, I think I need to allow. Uh, no, I'm gonna use passkey instead. Yes, thank you. Passkey, let's go. All right. Yeah, okay. It's because I don't have it set to all my repositories. So let me just add fresh fun. Cool. Save. No, it wasn't private. It's because when you set up the Deno app, you can say all of them. Okay, if you want to do it from the CLI, okay, okay, I'll do that in a second, Kevin. Let me just get the fresh fun. There we go. And I'm going to create it and deploy it. So this is if you're using it from the UI. It's cloning the repo, and then it's going to deploy it. And yeah, once it's done, I should have a new section in my projects here. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the deploy command that Kevin is talking about. Okay, I'm wondering what it's waiting on here. Um, Linking in progress, depending on the size of your repository, this may take a few minutes. Okay, well, I'll let that go ahead. Let's come back here. And so the deploy CTL, do I have that? No. So let's see. Okay, here's my project now. We'll go back to the CLI in a second there, Kevin. So if I just go to here now, boom, and I clearly missed some stuff when I did the commit, but everything's working. I forgot to do something with my styling, I guess. But boom, boom, there we go, and that's deployed. Let's close that. Okay. So yeah, for the deploy, I need deploy CTL. So let's see, Deno deploy CTL. Okay, this is what I need. So I'm just going to go ahead and install this. So if folks want to do this from the command line, here is that command, and I've left the Jumbotron open again. Let's put this up. So this is to set up the deploy CTL. Okay, so let's copy this. I already have Deno installed, so this should just work. Okay, cool. We're all set up. Clear and deploy CTL. Okay, commands there. Cool. All right, so let's do deploy CTL like Kevin said. Deploy dash dash project. Thank you, Fig. And I'm going to say equals, and then I need my project ID. The project ID is this, I believe. Find Condor 93. And we're going to do main.ts, not mate. Okay. So this is the first time I'm using it. So there's a GitHub app. Okay. If I want to, okay. So like without the dash dash prod, you just end up with like a deploy preview or like a not a non prod. Okay. All right. Cool. So, all right. So that got pushed. Okay. Okay. So it's uploading the assets and okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So just to be clear, just while this is uploading the assets and oh, you know what? think I think I know what the issue is. I think because it pulled in Tailwind, there's some node modules, and I don't have a git ignore with node modules, or do I? Does it add it? No, it's there. Okay, it's not that. Um, okay, it feels like it's putting up my node modules, but I could be wrong. Okay, yeah, but like Kevin was saying, while that's going on here, essentially, if you run deploy CTL, if you add the dash dash prod, it'll push directly to the prod URL as opposed to like a not a deploy preview, but like if we come here to my these are the two domains I have here, but then I can see like for example, this is a production deploy, but I could have like non-prod deploys here as well. Cool, cool. Um, okay. We're getting close to time here, but uh, lots of great chat. Uh, oh, okay, okay, okay. So, okay. Um, you know what's thank you for telling me that. Let me stop the deploy. Um, I wonder if by default, this is just hopefully constructive feedback. If you run the deploy CTL, if if it detects there's node modules, probably exclude it by default maybe and opt in to include maybe. Um, but that makes sense what you're saying. Okay, so let's add this here. Okay, boom. All right, where's okay? My cursor seems to have disappeared, but let's do exclude node modules and main.ts. I was wondering what, so I figured it was using my node modules. Too many positional arguments given. Okay, let me clear that out and try that again. Deploy CTL, deploy. Oh, I forgot dash dash. Sorry, that's my bad. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's still finding. Okay, let me stop that. Did I didn't type equals. That's why. My cursor has disappeared for some reason. Okay, there we go. Let's try this now. Oh yeah, 22 assets instead of 4,105. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So that's deploying, and if we come back up here, I should see another deploy in a sec. Okay, it's a glob. Okay, perfect. Okay, cool. So I think these were, I think two are the ones I canceled. Let's see, did that finish? Okay, it's deploying. I'll just let that finish. Um, but yeah, I don't think I had ever used the deploy CTL. Has that? I imagine that's been around for quite a while. Because when I looked into Fresh a couple years ago, I ended up just doing a git push kind of and letting it do its thing. But that's good to know that you can do from the command line as well. Okay, cool. Uh, that seems to be stuck on something. I don't know what, but anyways, um, yeah, so just to reiterate, you can deploy through git push and you just need to configure on Deno deploy to have your, set up your repo, or you can use the deploy CTL like Kevin was saying. And yeah, the git deployment route is the most common. Yeah, I would think so, just in terms of CI CD pipeline. Yeah, for sure. Cool, cool. All right. I think we're gonna wrap it up, but I'm just gonna kind of summarize kind of what we went through, and let's. You get to see my jumbotron face now. Here we go. That's not it. Here we go. Um, yeah. So just to kind of recap what Fresh is. So Fresh is a server-side rendered meta framework. Under the hood, it's using Deno. It's got Preact for templating on the server side as well as client side interactivity. You've got islands architecture, and there's a whole hydration process to that we walked through. I was talking about like the conditional comments and the server side rendered markup. That coupled with there's a script that contains the initial component states for interactive elements. And then the DOM tree gets walked, and there's this revive method that basically hydrates the components client side. I think it's pretty neat. And aside from that, We have a lot of things that they took inspiration from other meta frameworks. So you've got file-based routing, you got API routes, you've got dynamic and static routes. So like we went through briefly, you saw I was adding headers dynamically to a get for my YOLO page. Um, you can also do form posting. So think of like if you've used something like Remix, they have these actions. It's the same kind of idea. But basically you're just posting to the server in a serverless environment. And aside from that, yeah, the dynamic routes. So, like with the special characters. So like we saw like slash greet slash Cassidy, where we had the square brackets name.tsx file. Um, it's got Tailwind out of the box. If you want to, you can opt into that when you install it. If you are using VS Code, I encourage you to install the Deno extension because that gives you the language server as well as some other niceties. And in terms of running fresh or anything Deno wise, you can use a Deno task. So in the fresh project, we had this Deno.json file, and that's where you can store your tasks. That's similar to like scripts in an npm package.json. And aside from that, just trying to summarize anything else up. Oh yeah, we've got signals now because of Preact. So essentially, like I was saying throughout the stream, because it's based off of Preact, anytime Preact gets improvements or new features, Fresh gets those. So signals came out in Preact. I can't remember when, it was earlier this year. And so that's available in Fresh now. So for client side interactivity, if you don't want to use component state, you can opt to use signals instead. Let's see what else. The other exciting feature that thanks for bringing up, Kevin, is the partials. So we basically did client-based routing. We opted into it with the f dash client dash nav and imported partials, which gave us this partial component, and anything within the partial uh, that would just update by injecting the latest markup for that child of the partials component, which essentially gave us client-side routing. We also saw that if we did disable JavaScript, server-side rendering still kicks in. So, you know, it's a nice thing to have the client-side routing, but if you, for some reason, the JavaScript breaks or somebody has disabled it, it'll continue to do routing server-side based. Um, so all in all, it's lots of new stuff that I think are really great for the framework. It's exciting to see. Yeah, the other thing too I was going to say is I was mentioning the Tailwind. They originally used Twind, and it was compiling Tailwind to CSS on the fly. Now it's done at build time, I believe. And yeah, that's kind of it. I do want to thank everybody for checking out the stream today. Lots of great chats in the live stream. Thanks again, CFE.dev, for having me on once a month. Um, I'm going on Christmas vacation next week for the next couple of weeks, so I'll be back on CFE. I'll be chatting with Brian to see when the next one is, but we'll definitely have another one coming up in January. Still thinking about what we'll stream about. If you do have suggestions, feel free to drop them at the cfe.dev site or to Brian or myself. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just going to drop my website. So if anybody wants to see all the stuff I've been up to, it's just nickyt.co. You can find my live streaming schedule there, my socials, all that stuff. So thanks again, everybody. And if you are celebrating the holidays, I hope you have a happy holidays or you have some time off. And we'll see you in the next one.